Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey kids, welcome to Grumpy Nostalgia, the Second Look Cinema podcast, the show where we go back to the blockbuster new release wall of our memory, grab a copy off the shelf, pop it in the old VCR, and see what time has done to it. I'm Justin, that's Mike.
Morality sucks, Justin.
That's Headbang and Mosh Pit.
Hey, what's that?
And together we're all here to help you navigate the landmines littered down memory lane. So this is exciting, guys. This is our finale of our seasonal big box VHS horror spectacular bonanza.
Thank goodness.
Thank God. So if this was a music festival, this would be the closing act.
Headliner.
Yeah. So we're very excited to feature some new guests to the show. We're talking about they go by the moniker Headbang and Mosh Pit. Guys, thanks for joining us.
Happy Halloween, right?
Yeah. Thanks, guys. We're really excited to be here, especially headlining. So
no pressure. So these we spent some time with these guys in New York. They're musicians and writers respectively, but more than that, they're pop culture aficionados. We know that because we visited their apartment on the East Village, and it's essentially a pop culture antiquity museum. It's fantastic.
Oh, it's fabulous. Yes.
All 93 square feet of it. Yeah. But they were kind enough to take us. They were kind enough to take us in on our last pilgrimage to New York, and we had a great time. Had some great food, and just really enjoyed their company. And we thought this would be an opportunity to get them on the show because they've been listening for a while, and we're thrilled to have you guys. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
All right, so as the title suggests, we're talking about Halloween movies, and this is going to be our big finale. And we talked about some iconic films, but I think if we talked about that Mount Rushmore of horror films, so we covered. I think we could put Leatherface on that. We talked about that when we did Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think we could also consider Jason from Friday the 13th. You could probably put Michael Myers up there. And I think that fourth one, maybe in the Teddy Roosevelt spot in this case, would be the
squeezed in there.
A gentleman named Fred Krueger, who we're all very proud of. He's the focus of this feature. These guys wanted to talk about A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984.
84. Wow.
Yeah, that's a long time. That's going to be almost 40 years old, guys. Ouch. Makes my bone hurt just thinking about that. So. All right, but this is a very iconic film. Everybody's knows who Freddy is. He's been an iconic pop culture staple for decades now. And this is kind of where it all started, from very humble beginnings. And this one just exemplifies that 80s horror. I mean, it's just archetype at this point. It's just a fantastic example of what was going on in the horror scene in the 80s, and just created a rash of, let's say, complimentary films, we'll say, or rip-offs, or whatever the phrase may be, guys. So
homages,
yeah, that's the polite word. But guys, just in retrospect, what kind of, I know we talked about some movies we want to do, but what made you guys kind of come around to want to do this film as opposed to any of the others?
Well, I think we had a couple other ideas, and we couldn't decide together on the one, and I kept thinking, gosh, what movie really stands out to me watching it when I was a kid, or a teenager.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I thought, oh gosh, Nightmare on Elm Street. And he was like, yes. So, I think that's the first one we both agreed on. And it meant a lot to me, and still does,
Yeah, I mean, it was up in the air between this and Exorcist. And so we turned Exorcist on just to see if it was worthy. And I think about a half hour into it, we're like, this, I don't think is worthy. Of course,
really?
We love what we thought about the film, but the whole beginning was like a desert scene or something that made no sense. Where this jumps right into it.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah,
yeah.
It's weird you say that. I watched The Exorcist last night just to keep the cavalcade of carnage going for me, and I thought that very same thing. It starts out very story driven, and there's a lot of backstory there, and I guess it's important, but it's not really commonplace in the modern horror thing. They just kind of get right into it. But yeah, it gets a little more intense after that 30 minutes. Do you know Max von Sydow was only 43 years old when he played that character?
There's no way.
It's
He's
true.
like John Carradine. He never,
Youngest
he's
Yeah.
in the
always
room
old.
then. Jeez.
I think they aged him up a little bit, but he was 10 years younger than us, Mike.
Yeah,
Oh
incredible.
boy, yeah. He taught us how to process urine and feces in our thigh pads, Mike.
I get him to do.
All right, that's
All right.
that's 4 urine and feces reference jokes
At
for
least,
anybody who's
yes.
counting. All right, so I think we should probably get started. So let's kind of jump in. So this was directed by Wes Craven, who's in it itself is a horror icon as well. He's done 31 projects. He's written Scream, directed Scream, also did The People Under the Stairs, The Hills Have Eyes, which is another crazy, horrible one, and my personal favorite, Swamp Thing, which I watched on HBO as a child, over and over.
Shocker.
Yeah. He also served as the film's writer. He essentially does. He directs everything he writes, and so he's been very prolific over the years. This had a measly $1.8 million budget with New Line Cinema, a very struggling a very struggling production house at the time, and it was released on November 9th, 1984. Wow.
Yeah.
So. We already talked about one significant cast member here, Mike. But if you want to kind of elaborate on who the other supporting players were, who are the people that get killed in this movie?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still thinking about Adrian Barbeau.
I get it.
Yes.
Did I tell you the two? Did I tell you the 2 things I like about her, Mike?
Her nose and her lips.
Yeah, that's
Never
it.
mind. Let's see. Let's go for. It's not as an anonymous a cast as Evil Dead 2, but it's close. It isn't until you see the muffiny haired, Johnny Depp, you're like, oh, that guy,
Wow,
or when when they roll the credits, say introducing Johnny
Depp.
Introducing. So he gets the special introducing this one.
Yeah.
But our villain, Robert Englund, very classically trained actor. I can't think of anything other than horror movies he was in. Only thing that came to mind for me was Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
But
now he played the wimpy little villain in this miniseries V. He played Willie. Remember that show?
He was in V? I didn't know
He was in
that.
V.
Oh my gosh. I totally forgot.
Completely horrifying.
I just remember Mark Singer. Yeah. It's
yeah.
wimpy villain. But that's, even in this movie, he seems kind of wimpy.
Yeah.
We'll
get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. Yeah.
We have our teenagers in peril. Tina, who was very familiar to me. I think she was in a John Cusack movie, but
she was in Better Off Dead.
There you go.
That was it. Thank you. That was bothering me. Someone was like, I know her. Rod, who cares about Rod? Glenn, played by Johnny Depp. He was pretty cool in this movie.
Yeah.
And I think he set the crop top football jersey back a few years. Nancy,
and also the portable TV. That was
yes.
Oh yeah,
that was really a big thing.
Nancy, I think she ended up. I got a true confession here. I've never seen Nightmare on Elm Street before till last night. I had seen 3, 4, and 5, and the girl who played Nancy I knew was, I think, in 3, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is her origin story. So that was kind of cool.
How could you do that? I'd be so lost.
It's like watching the prequels from Star Wars and then watching New Hope.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, this is a pretty good movie. And then
who's this Skywalker guy?
Who's this guy? You have Nancy's dad, played by one of my favorite actors, John Saxon.
Oh yeah,
70s icon. Some of you might remember he was. They made fun of him in the Cave Dwellers.
That's right. Yeah,
the John Saxonville
Mystery Science Theater homage.
There you go. But he was better known for being in Enter the Dragon as pretty damn good fighter in that.
Yeah.
Some acting chops next to Bruce Lee. He had some little gravitas to the movie.
Better than Kareem.
Don't get me started.
Sorry, too soon. Yeah.
And then I want to have this is my spotlight focus character is Lynn Shay, who I believe is she must have been the wife of the producer. I'm not sure the relation. I saw that name appear a couple of times. I was like, wait a second. and she looked very familiar. And I realized she was the landlord from Kingpin,
Yeah.
and that brought back some good
yeah.
memories.
That's
And
right.
then, then I went down the rabbit hole and I looked her up, and she has done so many horror movies. It's incredible.
Right.
She just has that face, and I was like, okay, she's an Insidious.
Yeah, all those
She's in,
Conjuring movies, right?
yeah, she's in multiple Wes Craven movies after this, and just a crazy resume. I know she has the ties, like said, to the producer, but nice.
Considering how funny she is, I was like surprised to see her as the teacher in this. I was like, how'd she end up here?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
I just saw the overly tanned woman in Something About Mary.
Yeah,
me too. I said that.
Yep.
Totally.
But yeah, then she was, like I said, had this little brief cameo as a goofy teacher. This one, and that's pretty much your cast. I don't, like there's a guy who played Garcia, the lazy cop. That he looked familiar. I didn't go through the legwork of looking him up, so somebody else can do that.
That's okay, honey. You're tired. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'll talk about the cast a little bit here. So Heather Langenkamp, who played the Nancy as the lead here, she was hired over 200 actresses. She auditioned, beating out such candidates as Jennifer Grey. So somebody did put baby in a corner for once. Demi Moore was in the mix here for a while, and Courtney Cox was also in for this as well. We talked about Robert Englund as the titular character here. Freddy Krueger. The producers didn't want to hire an actor; they just wanted to have a stuntman play this role, kind of like they did in Friday the 13th. But he impressed enough people to get the role. They had to electronically alter his voice a little bit to get that octave down a little bit lower. But this is by far his most famous role. Kane Hodder, who me and Mike met at Dragon Con 100 years ago. He was he played Jason in all Jason films, but he was originally going to play this role as well. Kane Hodder is an interesting case. He's kind of like he's a ghost hunter guy now. I think he's
yeah.
So
Hollywood ghost hunter
personality. Yeah. He's a great guy.
Yeah. So I mean, who's not going to hire Jason to explore ghosts in your house? I mean, come on, give me a break. We mentioned Johnny Depp being this is his film debut. Charlie Sheen also auditioned for that role, but did not get it. We're talking about John Saxon a little bit. This guy has played over 200 parts over 6 decades. This guy has been just all over the place. But yeah, and we didn't talk about Renee Blakely, who played Nancy's mom.
Yeah, she looked interesting.
Ronnie, sorry, but we talked about Ronnie Blakely. I
looked her up, and she was married to Wim Wenders for a couple of years.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Awesome.
She's actually got nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress in Nashville, so she's got probably the only real acting chops at this point in this movie. But what I like about her,
man, don't dismiss John Saxon. Come on.
All right. So, but what I like about her character is she's never more than an arm's length away from a bottle of vodka, no matter where she is.
I know. Moves it out of her bed to talk to her daughter.
All right. So thank you for that. Thank you, Mike, for that cast update. So let's talk a little bit about the movie itself. So this is known as the New Line Cinema. Ultimately, was kind of saved from bankruptcy as a result of this film, and it kind of got remonikered as the house that Freddy built. The box office. The box office on this film really kind of helped subsidize that. Now, New Line Cinema is one of the few remaining, production houses that are still going and prosperous now. The glove used in this film was an original prop. The original glove is actually hanging in the work shed, Mike, in Evil Dead 2. Did you know?
Oh, wow.
If you saw at the end here, they thank Sam Raimi for this, but these guys kind of collaborated with each other, and they're actually watching a clip of Evil Dead during the film here. But this glove is hanging in the work shed as a prop there. It's vanished since then. People suspect that the producers took it, but it's never been to be seen again. There's only $57,000 of the $1.8 million budgeted to special effects. So the special effects crew had to get really creative here. Obviously, it was pre-CGI, and a lot of the props had to be practical, and a lot of the effects were very kind of clever. And the makeup here is relatively good too, but they had a very limited budget to pull this off, especially in the 30-day shoot that they had. This was shot in 32 days, so it was a real quick one.
That surprises me because I thought that the special effects were really good. Like really ahead of its time for what they had. They didn't have any CGI, and I thought a lot of really interesting scenes.
Yeah, there's some scenes here. We'll kind of get to it as we kind of go through the narrative of the film that I was very impressed with for looking at for 35 years old, or to pull off some of those visuals are pretty impressive. So we'll get to that with detail here in a little bit. They decided to go with red and green for Freddy's wardrobe because those are the two colors that make your eyes hurt the most when paired together. There's some actual science behind it. The term Elm Street, that's Wes Craven lived on Elm Street when he was in college at Wheaton, Illinois, not too far away from our old stomping grounds. He went to Wheaton College, and he was shacked up on Elm Street, and that's where he originally kind of penned the original draft of the script. That script was shopped around Hollywood for at least 3 years before anybody took a bite. New Line, being relatively new, took a chance on it because they could afford to take such risks, and I guess the rest is history. Freddy only has about 7 minutes of screen time here.
No way.
Which is weird because we've talked about other films like that where you kind of go back and the showcase of the film, when you look at them in hindsight, you realize that like Jaws is on for 4 minutes, and you see the shark for 4 minutes, and Freddy you only see for 7 minutes of this film, and it's roughly an hour and 40 minutes. So it's he makes the most of what he has here. They use 500 gallons of air quote blood in the film, which I thought was great. I think 300 of that was out of Johnny Depp,
Or Glenn.
or Glenn. And the body count here was 4, and there were 4 F words, and that's what we call in the movie business symmetry. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So as I mentioned, this came out in 1984. So we always like to talk about the pop culture scene that kind of led to these films coming out. So in 1984, this movie came out on November 9th. It was also came out the same weekend as Oh God, You Devil, which was the sequel to Oh God. George Burns played God here and the devil for scale. This one did not feature John Denver, however, guys.
That's a shame.
I think this was about him saving a young rock star who played by Ted Wass, who was on the TV show Soap, if anybody remembers that show 100 years ago. But yeah, just not good. And the other movie that came out this weekend was Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Nice.
A movie that every teenager of our generation didn't get to see around Christmas time. The next weekend we had Chuck Norris in Missing in Action. Insert Chuck Norris joke here. And about 2 weeks later, we had Beverly Hills Cop. So that kind of took over the landscape. In theaters prior to this, we had the original Terminator with Arnold Schwarzenegger and James Cameron. That came out on October 26th. So it was a busy time in the old movie theater. 84 was
done Terminator yet?
No, not yet. No.
That's a fantastic film. I was just looking that up, and he didn't want to play the robot, and
right.
He wanted to add, "I will be back."
Yes,
because I watched the documentary, and he's like, the director was like, "Just keep Will out of there." And I'm sure by the time we were watching this, we're all saying, "We'll be back."
Yeah. Well, given the pattern of our show, we'll cover Terminator 2 first, and then we'll cover Terminator later.
Yes.
Origin story.
We can't seem to get anything in order. But 84 was just a phenomenal year for movies, guys. We had, Ghostbusters was a top film that year. We had Indiana Jones, The Temple of Doom, Gremlins, Beverly Hills Cop, Red Dawn, Splash. I mean, just the list goes on and on and on. You had the Karate Kid as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you may think I'm saying that wrong, but that's how we pronounce it in my dojo. So don't
like outsiders.
You want to take it up with my sensei if you don't believe me. So that's where we stand on that. On the TV, we were watching great shows on TV in 1984. We were watching The A-Team, starring Mr. T, who we covered on Rocky 3 a couple of shows back. Great actor.
I pity the fool.
The show Family Ties, Sha-la-la-la. That was on. That was everybody's favorite show then. And then
Justin, what do we do without us?
Baby.
What do we do, baby?
There ain't nothing we can't pull each other through, Mike. I've always said that. Yeah. The other shows we were watching was The Cosby Show, which is a nice, wholesome show by a stand-up guy that we all came to respect later in life. So there you go.
I know. Malcolm Jamal Warner were letting me down.
On the music scene, this is where it gets fun, guys. So the number one song when this movie came out was Wham's "Wake Me Up Before You Go Go." Yeah. You do put the boom boom into my heart, Mike.
Do you choose life, Justin?
I do.
Gosh, get your own
All
room.
right. We had Caribbean Queen by Billy Ocean, which is his second best song by far. I think the Get Out of My Dreams in My Car is
He's
the
simply
best song.
awesome.
He
She
is
really
simply
is.
awesome. Exactly.
Yeah.
We had Tender Years by John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band.
Oh,
Eddie and the Cruisers.
Eddie and the Cruisers. Nice
Yep.
going there, headbang.
Mm.
So what I like about this band, can you imagine like the name of this band? Can you imagine like, hey, John Cafferty, have you thought about naming the band yet? And he goes, well, guys, I'm going to name it after myself, and you guys are going to be named after brown paint.
They're actually on tour around here.
Are they really?
As
Yeah.
we speak, they're playing some live shows in Jersey.
Or yeah, he could easily pass as a Bruce Springsteen cover band, but that's for another podcast, I think. Other catchy tunes on the radio, we had "Run to You" by Bryan Adams, "We Belong" by Pat Nebatar, and for the most part, "Purple Rain" was on the charts. I think it was on the charts like 37 weeks this year. It was just a staple for 1984. But on the pop scene, at least, a lot of great music. So there you go. Some other things of pop culture relevance that I'll just go through here kind of quickly. This was starting the Christmas season. Back then, the hot items for Santa's list this year were the Cabbage Patch Kids, which were originally called Little People. I don't know why that didn't stick.
Why?
I challenge anybody to look at a Cabbage Patch Kid in the face and not laugh.
It's impossible.
I was doing a little research on these guys, and Mike, in a mere 4 hours away, we could go to Babyland, which is where they actually create all of these Cabbage
Georgia?
Patch Kids. In Cleveland, Georgia.
Yeah, I remember that.
If we leave now, we could be there by midnight, Mike. Just saying.
Babyland.
But the Cabbage Patch Kids ended up suing the Garbage Pail Kids, so they're dead. They're dead to me. So enough.
Exactly.
The other big thing from Santa's list there was a Trivial Pursuit. Everybody was playing Trivial Pursuit back then. It's just a great board game even to this day. All right. And then we were all playing Nintendo Duck Hunt. That was the big game on the video game system. Clara Peller.
Oh boy.
So let's move on. She uttered the famous phrase, "Where's the beef?" And that was that year. This year, she was a Russian immigrant who did nails in Hyde Park in Chicago, and she lived alone. So there you go. She made $320 for saying that phrase. But maybe
kidding?
We were just looking up those old commercials, and they're actually hilarious.
They're great.
Yeah, I want to know why that was a commercial. First off, I don't know if we drop franchises around here, but I couldn't believe that was Wendy's. I can't remember a Wendy's commercial.
You can't make that anymore. That would be meat shaming. Yeah.
Yeah.
But she actually came off that loud because she didn't have her hearing aid in. and the director actually asked her to say the line again, and she just said it really loud, and that's not legend. That's true. So I think that's more than we need to talk about Clara Peller for the rest of our life. This is the year famously that Michael Jackson's hair caught on fire during a Pepsi commercial. It was terrible. Speaking of terrible, MTV finally recognized black artists this year by getting him a bunch of awards. This is the year of the first MTV Music Video Awards, and we've had a beef with MTV for a while, and this is going to cement it forever. They famously put the Cars You Might Think video as the winner that year over Michael Jackson's Thriller.
That's a creative video. He's like a fly, and he's driving his car everywhere.
For public access television, it's pretty creative. But the 18-minute Hollywood-produced iconic song with Michael Jackson and John Landis, not good enough. So there you go. Fashion scene was really big. We were all wearing Guess jeans and members-only jackets back then. So I'm actually wearing those right now in tandem. So what does that tell you about me? And movie tickets were $2.50.
Wow.
All right.
Shocking.
So
we must have been about $1 then.
Yeah. So we all went to go see this movie for $10. Not bad. All right. So we kind of set the stage here, guys. We're in 1984. We're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. We're getting ready to go into a theater to see this horribly scary movie that everybody, I remember when I was a kid, everybody had seen this on HBO. And I remember only wanting to see it because it was keeping up with the Joneses effect. I just wanted to make sure that I saw it, So never considered seeing this in the theater, but we'll kind of get to that as we go. But it's cemented itself in pop culture. It's an iconic horror film, and we should probably get started. So, Mike, unless you've got anything else, why don't you hit the button?
Yeah.
So our movie kind of opens up with the construction of the glove. It's done by this tiny, dirty hand who's got asthma. We don't get to see the face here, but once he creates the glove,
he says, "Yeah,
yeah." I got "yeah" on my subtitle. Yeah. But what caught my ear immediately here was the classic '80s horror synth music. I mean, that's the first thing that just really kind of cements your nostalgic memory of these things is hearing that music. So
I thought the choice of having a small screen over the whole picture. I don't know who thought of that, but that really brought you in. I feel right off the bat that extra small screen with the cast underneath it.
Oh yeah, that's a great take.
Very unique choice.
It kind of puts you in that little like claustrophobic kind of thing, the theme that just kind of resonates with the rest of the film. So we get the opening credits in kind of like a refrigerator magnet font. They're just kind of all over the place, and they kind of go through everybody that was involved with the movie. Yeah.
And what was who is Justin? Let's refresh him. Who is Charles Bernstein? Is he related to Elmer Bernstein or Leonard Bernstein?
He must be.
He must be, right? I mean, the guy's he's a unknown genius to me. The music in this movie is great, and he does all the music for it. And as I saw his name, I was like, okay, I know maybe this is his brother. I knew Elmer. I didn't know Charles, so this was kind of interesting.
Maybe tack that onto the things you research for the podcast, Mike.
That's right. I'll add that. I'll add it to my long, extensive list.
There you go. I think he can handle two things.
Man, I'll try. Up yours, Justin, with a twirling
lawnmower.
Yeah.
All right. So it starts out with Beth from Better Off Dead in her in a little negligee, of course, and she's being chased down. You can tell it's kind of a dream. She's being chased down this hallway, and by this nameless, faceless figure, and you see the gloves, and the blades kind of screeching on the pipes and stuff. That's kind of an iconic scene, and we get that standard movie trope where the jump scare kind of dream wake up thing. Have you ever woken up from a nightmare like that, Mike?
Jump scare? No, not really.
Standing straight up in bed, clutching your pearls,
the sweat. Yeah, no. I haven't had my pajamas slit open either, but that's just me.
Mike in his pajamas. There's an image for everybody.
There you go.
Take that to bed.
Enjoy.
There you go. So the theme of the film is here that this thing is haunting kids in their dreams, and they actually manifest in their real life. So she kind of comes out of it with her negligee, her nightie all slashed up, and we've got a premise, guys, that we're off and running. So we kind of cut to the next day, and we kind of get introduced to the main cast. So
I loved when her mother came in. I was like, her mother's just as messed up as all the mothers right then were tossing back the booze or something.
Yeah. Well, we learn later in the film there's an ulterior motive to these parents' nonchalance, this attitude. We'll kind of get to that. So that's a good point. So we get introduced to the main fodder here. We got the Tina, who's the young girl that we met here earlier in the dream sequence, the blonde, and we meet Glenn, who's played by Johnny Depp, and we meet the Nancy, the main character, Heather Langenkamp, who's actually, Mike, she's over at the in Concord, North Carolina, by us. Next weekend in the Mad Monster Convention. We should go see her.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, still hanging out there.
Is it just for this Nightmare on Elm Street, or she got something? Is she just the series, or was she in other horror movies?
No, just she was in all these series, but she did a lot of like TV work and stuff like that. But
gotcha. Okay.
By far her most famous stuff. Still looks good, man.
Nice.
So they're going to school, and they're kind of talking over. They've all been having these kind of weird dreams. Later that night at a sleepover, they all kind of share some of their combined dream experiences and kind of freak out. That's where we get introduced to Rod, who's like the fourth piece of the puzzle. Rod, he's the big knucklehead guy that every horror film needs. So they kind of split up into the slutty kids and the good kids, and the slutty kids go off to their mom's bedroom for what, and Johnny and Heather Langenkamp are just outside, just taking it slow. But that night, that's where it all kind of goes down. of course, the two that had sex are probably in trouble first, right? So that night, Freddy is pushing through the wall. And this is, I think, Mosh Pit, you were talking about this. That scene where he kind of pushes through the wall and the lighting is that was really scary. That looked like CGI.
Incredible that I don't know how they did it or what they did to do that, but it was absolutely terrifying. And it was right above her head. And I love that she just picked up the cross, smashed it over it and said, that was just an incredible scene because it stood out as being like, how did they do this in 1990?
Yeah. It's a clever combination of like practical effects and ingenuity that have essentially been erased from the cinema scope. Those things, that kind of creativity doesn't exist anymore because you can just generate it in a computer. But that would not sell as well, and I think because it's that way, it hits hard. But that was an amazing, creatively lit scene that just freaked me out to start with.
That was awesome, and I think what they set up there, which I've always wished I could be a director of sorts, but one thing I never would have thought about was the fact that she proves the wall is hard by putting that cross up there.
Yeah, all in one shot. Yeah.
So you're like, wow, this is a hard wall, and they continue to do that when they totally take something that's solid or something. They will then prove to you that it's still solid.
Yeah,
after Freddy's been there.
Yeah,
but who would put a cross on a slanted roof wall? I don't know.
That's good fun. We'll let that one go. So this is when Freddy starts making his first appearance. So we have another like scene where Tina's having another nightmare, and Freddy's starting to chase her, and that's when we get the first full reveal of Freddy, and he's got those like Mr. Fantastic arms that kind of extendo out, which is really kind of creepy. You get to see his horrible skin, his really bad teeth, and we cut back to the real world and we see Beth in a very creative shot here where you can tell the camera's kind of mounted and the room's kind of spinning, but it looks like she's spinning up against the wall, climbing the ceiling, and there's blood flying everywhere. She gets tossed around a few times, knocks Rod down in his tidy whities.
Tidy whities, buddy.
Yeah. But it's really kind of a horrifying scene, and we kind of ends with her, getting eviscerated, sort of. And then, Tina and Glenn kind of burst in. They see her on the floor covered in blood, and Rod's gone. And the assumption here is that they're left to believe that Rod's killed her, and there you go. So, so the police come in, and Heather Langenkamp's taken with her mom down to the station, where we get introduced to John Saxon, who doubles as not only the police investigator here, but also her dad. And they're interviewing Nancy to try to get more detail about Rod because they consider him to be the killer because he got a switchblade and all that good stuff. So they end up apprehending Rod and taking him into the jail. Nancy decides to go back to school and dozes off in class. And what I liked about this class is what I like about this class is composed about extras that are probably in their 40s or 50s playing high school kids. So none of these guys look under 30. But she kind of dozes off, and she starts to manifest these dreams. She sees her friend Beth in the body bag, which I thought was a really great shot.
Oh, it's creepy.
Yeah, not good. And now we learn that Freddy's now after her, and it's on. That kind of sets up the second act, which is just kind of a melange of different types of iconic scenes. Now, in hindsight, the pursuit of Freddy trying to get these kids to fall asleep so he can take them. We got the iconic scene in the tub where she's taking a bath, and we see Freddy's razor hands come up between her legs, and that scene's been tattooed on everybody's memory. They're always drinking coffee, trying to stay awake. What I liked here is the gooey stairs. Remember the stairs she's going up, and
the glue stairs that she gets stuck. Yeah.
They managed to extract like nightmarish things, like real things you would have in your that you don't control in your nightmares. That was a great example of that.
Which I love that the school scene where they just have that sign, "No students allowed."
Yeah.
I was thinking, where in my school did it ever happen? Past this
teachers' lounge, maybe
teachers' lounge, where like you open the door and smoke was getting tossed.
Oh, wasn't it weird when you see the teachers' lounge and you see all your teachers smoking? That was so weird. Back. And I love how we'll get to smoking in inappropriate places later, but so there's just tons of iconic scenes.
Oh yeah, I forgot about together. Charles Fleischer.
Yeah, we're getting there.
I have an addendum to my cast. Sorry about that.
I know where you're going, but
we have Roger Rabbit himself.
Yeah, that's all right. hey, slow down, Mike. We're getting there. We get this. They extract all these like seminal, visceral things that you have in your nightmares. They do a great job of like putting that right up on the screen, which I thought was just really great. That scene where he jumps through the mirror. I mean, again, that's a great effect that never had been done in cinema before. That was fantastic. He ends up killing Rod in the jail cell, which I thought was funny because, if he's this evil master of horror, why would he try to, conceal this murder as a suicide? Like Freddy, just let it go, baby. You're evil. You don't have to conceal it. But so we've lost Tina, we've lost Rod, and then so the cast is thinning out, so the movie's got to be almost over. So after they attend the funeral for Rod, don't worry, Heather Langenkamp's mom takes her to the Katja Dream Institute. So they're on the case, Mike. They're gonna and this is where we get introduced to Dr. Fleischer, Mike. So who famously played the voice of Roger Rabbit, as Mike is
a very blue stand-up comedian too.
Yes, man. Very astutely pointed out. I like the fact that Nancy's mom is smoking in the doctor's office. That just looks funny. I was watching The Exorcist last night, as I mentioned, and the doctor is smoking. The doctor is smoking in the hospital as she's explaining Reagan's weird affects. But it just seems so.
Probably really happened, which is awesome.
Yeah, it just seems so weird now to see that, but no one would even mention that back then, which is great. So they kind of put her into a sleep study, and she pegs the meter on all the EKGs, and she actually manifests Freddy's hat. She brings that back into the reality, and at this point, her mom kind of shows her cards and says, "Okay, well, so she knows that something's amiss here." Their parents are finally confronted about what's going on, and it turns out there's a backstory where Freddy was a child killer, a child murderer that kind of escaped prosecution on technicality. So all the parents in this Elm Street area rounded it up into a boiler room and set the building on fire and burned him to death. And that serves as the origin story for Freddy, and I think he's come back cursed to take care of all these other people's kids. So that's kind of how we got to where the Nightmare on Elm Street is. So the finale is kind of the third act is this really hectic finale where Nancy kind of goes full Rambo. She decides that she's going to bring Freddy back into the real world. She's got a plan. She actually does some weird like Home Alone stuff. She's
booby traps. I looked up that book to see if that book was actually like what is it called?
The book she.
Yeah, because then she learns how to do all these booby traps. Johnny Depp and her are like on that bridge, and he's like,
he's
eating a burger.
I'm reading about booby traps.
Anarchist cookbook. Yeah,
I think Joe Don Baker read it and used it in Cape Fear.
It's right.
Yeah.
With his bourbon and Pepto-Bismol.
And his teddy bear. Don't forget the teddy bear.
Yeah, the teddy bear.
Yeah, no, booby traps and improvised anti-personnel devices.
There you
Nice.
go. That's a great way to take out Freddy. So
it's in the library right after Anarchist cookbook.
Yeah, exactly. So she puts together a plan with Glenn, and he's supposed to stay on guard. Of course, Glenn falls asleep, and we get one of the most amazing kill scenes ever. Glenn's on his bed in his little half shirt with a 13-inch television on his stomach. That would be a phone now. But the blade comes up through the bed and pulls him in, guaranteeing that anybody 13 years old or younger would never sleep again in their bed. Pulls him in, and you get this blood volcano, which is it's crazy horrible. So we lost Glenn. Nancy's left to her own devices. She runs Freddy Krueger through a maze of Home Alone things. To the irony here, wouldn't it be funny if she did like a Joe Pesci flamethrower thing on Freddy after he's already burned? But he gets hit with a sledgehammer in the stomach, and he trips a wire, and a light bulb full of gunpowder explodes. And she remembers at the end when she's cornered, she remembers what Glenn had mentioned to her on the bridge about how some cultures demystify evil by turning their back on it and taking away its power. And she pulls the
Balinese.
The Balinese, yeah. So she turns his back on Freddy and says, I take away my power, and I want my mom and my friends back. And he kind of like disintegrates right in front of her. And we think we've got a happy ending because the next scene is it's a bright, shiny day. they're heading out to school. Johnny's pulling up in his red his convertible with all the friends in the back seat, and she hops in, and mom even says she's going to stop drinking, which fat chance. Not seeing it there, Ronnie.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
But in a cruel, twisted fate, every horror film, the ragtop goes down, and we see the pattern of the red and the green, like Freddy's sweater. And they start to realize that Freddy's in control of the car, and Heather looks back on the front porch and sees a mannequin that looks just like her mom getting pulled through the door.
Amazing.
It's silly, but it was shocking at the time, of course. And that's it. That's the end of the movie, and you left this horrible little image at the end. But we do get Grace with the song 213 Nightmare. Did anybody stay around?
It's a dream.
It's a dream. It's a dream. Kind of sounded like Glenn Danzig after oral surgery. It was a horrible, horrible song. But I listened to every minute of it because I just couldn't get enough of it. But they run through the credits, and that's the end, guys. And the movie is over, and we're left to ponder what we just saw.
Yeah, the ending really kind of like mystified me. I was like,
yeah,
it bothered me. It just really seemed tacked on,
Yeah.
And I had to watch the second one right afterwards just to kind of catch the continuity of it and like say, okay, what happened to the four in the car? What was that, a dream? And then they say like 5 minutes in the second movie, that one girl went crazy, so you have to assume she survived. And
well, it's a new nightmare, Mike. They can do that.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying the ending was just kind of odd.
Yeah, it was weird.
It didn't quite make sense of what we had just saw. It's like a quick cut from her leaving him, and then boom.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's where like she wins. So you like, she won and killed the Freddy, but that was all part of the nightmare. Like the nightmare, who knows how long she's been sleeping? That was one of the weird things I was trying to figure out. Like, where does the dream begin?
Right.
Maybe she's still, in the dream clinic. She never brought the glove back because, there's no reality from a certain point and beyond inside the film, which is complicated to think about. But,
but I think that's the nightmare theme that they kind of want to portray.
It's dream science.
There you go.
That way. No one understands.
Which was the first of my favorite quotes. What is a nightmare anyway? What the hell is a nightmare? The mom asks.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think what she's seeing at the dream clinic, they said, well, dreams are good. If you don't dream, you go crazy.
Yeah.
So it's really that kind of focus, which is interesting.
Okay, well, let's talk about let's talk a little bit about awards and accolades, and we'll kind of do a little roundtable.
You were going to say booby traps because I was like, who thought of booby traps before Goonies?
Yeah, I'll never miss a chance to say booby.
It's booby traps.
So this movie had a $1.3 million opening, which was huge because it only had a $1.8 million budget. So that's in Hollywood accounting. That's a massive hit. Ended up pulling in $25 million in its domestic run and picked up another 60,000 worldwide. 2,600 from Iceland for some reason, which I thought was funny, where it's since been banned. Didn't get a lot of awards, but did get 3 Saturn awards for the villain and the makeup and the special effects. So that was well done. I think the legacy of this film is essentially its sequels and remakes. It had 8 sequels through various iterations. It had one not very well received remake in with Jackie Earle Haley playing Freddy, who's at his 4 foot tall doesn't seem that menacing. It only got a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes and only a C+ cinema score. And that's a theme I kind of want to talk about. They really didn't do anything new. They just kind of retold the story. And that's kind of a symbolic of what horror films are really kind of like. We'll get that here when I talk about my pretentious view of it. This movie is currently streaming on Max. For those that are interested, you can check it out. It did end up winning the best villain slot on AFI's top 100 list. Freddy Krueger, of course, is in there. It was on EW Entertainment Weekly's scariest movies list, justifiably so. But the pop culture relevance of this film is, it's just has a legacy. Freddy is an archetype of horror, modern horror. Now everybody knows who Freddy Krueger is. But that's kind of where we left it. So The point of this show is we talk about how we like the movies from the first time we saw it versus our most recent watch. So you guys are the guests, so we're going to let you guys take your first stab at it. So, Mosh Pit, why don't you tell us about the first time you saw this film? What were the circumstances, and what was your take on it on your most recent watch? What's changed?
Well, I think the first time I saw it was on HBO, probably with my siblings. And I was very excited to see it because I'd heard a little bit of buzz about it, and I'm like, oh, we can watch it. And I think it was probably after our parents went to bed, And I didn't realize how scary it was. I didn't like looking back now. I found it more terrifying and more well done than at the time. Was it just being like some kind of a slasher film? And I thought, like, it was so important, and everybody our age saw it because it was really one of the beginnings of films that was geared for like teenagers, about teenagers, and I think ever since then, everybody wanted to see horror films more. So when I saw it again, and I might have caught some of it, but like watching it again for this, I was very impressed. At everything about it, like the script, the music, the special effects, and the acting. Like I thought it was better now than I did then, which is interesting. I was surprised by it. Oh,
we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. All right, Headbang, what about you? Kind of the same scenario there. What's your take?
Oh yeah, it's funny to be watching it on the same station I watched it on 40 years ago, but on HBO I caught it. And I was a wee little boy, and that absolutely scared the crap out of me. But I thought of it, it's crazy enough, more as a slasher film. And watching it now, it's got some great drama inside of it that is beyond just cheap gore. Because it's not like in all the movies now where actually they use dreams too much to do like a cheap scare, where they're actually in a dream and they're making it seem real.
Yeah,
that's that they can. And then so you don't know where Freddy is gliding through, but they don't do the bang, the quick noise to scare you. It is actual scary, horrifying images that, for a film, it's very psychological because of like the stair scene and stuff like that. So I remember thinking it of more as like a scary slasher, as if it was just a goofy horror film. Back on HBO, and so I've never saw it on the big screen, but for watching it just on a 42-inch instead of like a 13-inch screen, it's still very scary, man, with the lights off.
That's a great take. There's a stream of consciousness about it that's, to your point, it's like it supplants like traditional horror tropes and like created its own, and that's. I think that's something to talk about. I'll talk about that when I get to my turns. But first, let's hear about Mike's take. Mike, how about you?
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I gave away earlier that I'd never seen this movie before last night. I saw 3, 4, and 5 because it was like peer pressure. Hey, you got to see these movies. They're about dreams and, kind of going off the crowd kind of thing. I love those movies, and I thought they were great. And I love the idea of, a sinister villain that could come in the night and like invade your dreams. What's really cool is there's all the movies, even through 5. 2 is terrible. 3 is pretty good. 4, it goes off the rails after 5. Let's just put it that way. But all the movies seem to have some science base to it, which I really like. Like the whole idea of hypnagogic kind of state.
Yeah.
Of like, is that an illusion? Is that a dream? The dreams of like sleep paralysis, using that as kind of like in some of these movies where like the running in place, stuck on the stairs, that kind of thing. Even the concept of the movie itself, I watched a long documentary about, these Laotians in the 70s that came over to the US and were dying of something called like sudden, unexpected, nocturnal death or whatever, but they were dying in their sleep. And it was caused by what the Laotian or Cambodian, depends on who you watch. They were calling it a night hag, they called it the Cho Chua or something like Cho Chua. And it was supposed to invade these people's dreams at night. And it actually became a huge news story in like LA Times, and Wes Craven he sees a story, and that becomes Nightmare on Elm Street. And I thought that whole backstory fascinated me. And then when I saw the movie last night, it's like watching the origin story of some of this, even though you don't know he's the son of a nun and he likes to drive school buses. It was well done. Like kind of like we said about Evil Dead and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is like in that, pantheon of movies where you watch and you're like, okay, this movie took a basic story, but now you see this movie made so many times afterwards, and you're like, this is the start of the legend, and the music, the camera perspectives, the editing, it was so draws you in, like they're talking about the being claustrophobic. I just liked it. It was a nice take on a teenage slasher kind of movie, and it avoided a lot of the tropes you see, except for of course, Rod and Tina getting it on. But it was a good movie. Thumbs up.
All right, that's very astute, Mike. Thank you. I'm not too far away from any of your guys' opinions. I think I watched this because, again, like I mentioned, I don't want to get lost in the fray. Everybody in junior high was talking about this, which is the case for most HBO movies came out. That was, water cooler talk for us junior high kids. And I didn't want to be left out. So I watched it, and I think back then I was kind of weird about movies. I was kind of pretentious. like I've changed so much now.
Yeah.
But it's just one of the things like I probably didn't like it as much as I should have because everybody else liked it. I didn't want to like conform to everybody. But I'm the opposite of you, Mike. I have only seen this one. I haven't seen anything since. But when I saw it the first time, I did not like it. I just thought it was, it made me feel nostalgic thinking about it. But I thought it was like just a general type horror film. But then on my most recent watch, I became, as is so often the case when we review these movies 40 years later, like we do on this podcast, I developed a new type of appreciation for it, because what I think is interesting is when we watch movies like this that are essentially time capsules, right? Your default setting is like, oh, this is like every other movie you've seen. Well, wait a minute. No, it's not. It was the first movie.
This was it. Yeah.
And everything else since then has borrowed these themes and tropes and tenets forever. So these kind of things can get lost in the fray and not get appreciated, because if you were to show a millennial this film, or a Gen Z, it's like, oh, I've seen this before. Well, you know what? You didn't in 1984. That's the thing. That's what everybody misses. You don't have the luxury of going back in the time machine, but the context of 40 years of copycat cinema, make these things kind of seem kind of lost, they're just in the gray. But you gotta imagine, in 1984, seeing this as a 13-year-old kid, you don't have 40 years of pretext or prologue about what movies are supposed to be like. This is it. And I think that's what made me kind of appreciate this, because there's a lot of stuff here that was new and original and has been borrowed since. And it's hard to like differentiate that, right?
Even like this just the cool sound effects they came up with are just so creative.
Yeah. Chalkboard sounds. Like,
Uh-huh.
I don't think you can go through the rest of your life not hearing, and they don't even bring that in. Like, I think if I would have thought of that, like I would have just started that from the beginning, and they used it effectively. And I think that became more of a theme in the joking series that followed this franchise. Yeah, which this movie doesn't need to be a franchise.
No,
is that they start using all that stuff comically and
as a caricature, right? So Freddy's now Freddy versus Jason, and they're not they're just cash grabs essentially. But yeah, it's a good point. Headbang, appreciate that. So guys, we've talked a long time about this dumb movie, but I appreciate your take on that. Sorry.
I got a lot more to say.
But as you know, this is the time of the show where we try to get clever and creative. So there's a lot of tenets about this film, a lot of tropes we wanted to extract. But one of the things we really liked is that we talked about the Mount Rushmore part. We thought it'd be interesting to talk about some things about this movie. So it's a special occasion. It's the finale. It's the last show of our tour. We thought we'd do a little supersize this week. So we're going to go on this week's installment of You Just Made the List, Pal. We're going to supersize it with 2 questions. First time ever. So the first time around, let's talk about our favorite horror villain, a la Freddy. So you can't use Freddy, but let's kind of go around round table. And I know you guys put a lot of thought on this. I want to go around and say, who's your most iconic horror villain? So Mosh Pit, why don't you head us off first, and maybe your top one, and maybe an honorable mention or two along the way.
Well, I'm glad I get to go first, ladies first. But my favorite villain is not from a long time ago. It's more recent, but it still fits the bill. I'm gonna go with the Babadook.
Ooh, nice.
I love
Babadook is so menacing. It's scary. It doesn't go away no matter what you do. It's dark.
Yeah.
It torments everybody in the house. For me, that's that's just such a brilliant, like, looming thing.
Yeah.
So I choose Babadook, but I just have to give an honorable mention. And she's not a villain, but she is Reagan from The Exorcist.
Yeah.
I never forget that. To me, that was the first time I was ever scared that much in my life. So she has her on. That's my honorable mention.
Right.
No, that's a great call. Can't go wrong with that one. Great picks.
Again, she's so scary because it's in-camera tricks again.
Yeah.
It's like authentic.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize, but when I was listening to Bram Stoker's Dracula, you guys talked about, and those girls calling up the wall, I'm like, how did they do that in camera?
Yeah.
And then I'm watching they do the Fred Astaire flips in this one, and Rod Lane is always in front of the picture.
Right.
You know, and I'm like, what they do? Strap them into?
They must have, yeah. Like a camera rig.
Where the camera guy got electrocuted. I mean, there's lots of things that went wrong, but
yeah. All right, Headbang, it's up to you now. Your picks.
Yeah, you know, I was actually right off the bat, I was thinking the cable guy, Chip Douglas. But that was I don't know why he popped up first. But when I started thinking about it, Babadook came across as well, which he's so brand new that it's crazy that he would overtake a lot of iconic images.
Yeah.
But it was a battle between Alien, if that counts. I don't know how supernatural
yeah.
that is,
Yeah.
but Chucky is absolutely one of the scariest movies at the age I saw it because the commercial was everywhere. I never had a whatever that song is, My Buddy. I've never had a My Buddy, but I never wanted one ever again.
Well,
you know wherever you go, he goes.
Which sounds even more scarier now. But I had to put that little creepy doll on top.
No, that's a great pick.
They tried to redo Scary Dolls, and they haven't.
I think just the fact that Brad Dourif did his voice is scary enough for me. So, so that's a great pick. Thanks. Shockingly, we've gone all Halloween now talking about Chucky, Mike. So
yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Got to have a buddy doll.
My buddy used to climb up a tree.
I know, my buddy. That's fantastic.
All right, Mike. I've been waiting all week. I'll be waiting all week for this one, Mike. So it's your turn. What's your pick?
Honorable mentions. I'm going to go with Linda Blair and Caged Heat. I was thinking about Exorcist, but there you go. My other honorable mention would be Mr. Carstairs from the original Scooby-Doo episode, where he's now you can say which one of the villains is he? He was the creeper, but he's also a banker. So
okay,
you got two villains in one.
Very meta.
There you go. But my ultimate choice is a little movie that came out in 1988 that starred one of our favorites, Lance Henriksen, and he summoned this demon named Pumpkinhead.
Nice,
to avenge his son's death on some stupid teenage bikers. Fantastic.
Dirt bikers,
Dirt bikers, of course. It's supposed to be set in North Carolina, but we'll just say Southern. So it's a nice Southern demon. The whole idea is it's a revenge demon that enjoys really sadistic killing in a lot of creative ways. Kind of like Freddy. His murders get more creative as the franchise. And again, I kind of agree with Headbang and Mosh Pit here. This should not have been a franchise, but unfortunately, after this movie came out, there were a couple direct video movies that just suck. Don't watch them.
You just can't get away from it. So.
That's right. But the Pumpkinhead is great because doesn't really have a pumpkin head so much as like just a bulbous kind of melon, and he's real kind of like a skeleton. But he's really cool. He's like 8 foot tall. You know, he has a tail that he can impale his victims with.
It's a Stan Winston created thing.
Yeah,
too.
that's right. I think he directed it. And Lance Henriksen too late realizes that he and the Pumpkinhead are one. don't want to give away the ending, but it's tragic. But Pumpkinhead returns later on, and a couple others. Really, like I said, shitty
Nice one,
movies.
man.
But there you go.
Well done. Well, Lance Henderson, another guy we met at Dragon Con.
That's right.
Oh, goodness. Why did we stop going? All right, so my favorite pick is it's a little topical here because we just talked about it, but my favorite villain of all time is going to be Bubba Sawyer, commonly referred to as Leatherface. I as a result of watching that film again, I just can't get all the imagery out of my head. I really did some serious psychological damage watching that movie.
Why does he wear the wig and have to like be domestic? That's kind of weird.
I'll tell you, because what I like about Leatherface is he wears his heart on his sleeve. Mike, he has three different masks. One is the pretty girl, one is just the working face, and one is just the happy face. And you always know where you stand with Leatherface because that's the face he's wearing at that time. But just 6'4", 300-pound, mentally ill, smashing people with chainsaws. I think it's more situational than anything else because it's been in my head. But this is we watched that movie last time with Aaron. I'm going to curse Aaron's name for the rest of my life, but just can't get that out of my head. I was just trying to think who would supplant it. And there's all kinds of great ones there. But
just think how happy he was though, dancing in the sunlight there at the end of the movie. He's dancing. He's happy.
All those fluid movements, and he's just
happy-go-lucky kind of fella.
He lives life on his own terms, Mike, and you got to respect that. But I think if I had an honorable mention, I got to go with Lubden, the Leprechaun. You talk about silly franchises. The Leprechaun had, I think, 5 sequels. He went to the Hood, and then he went back. He went back to the Hood, and then he went to space. So these are just horrible movies. not even liked by the people that watch them. I think it's just funny that Leprechaun exists in our world. But the Leprechaun. There you go. That's my runner-up. Why not?
He's got like Bruce Willis one-liners. He's the kind of guy that gives you one last, tagline right before he takes care of you.
Yeah. No pot of gold for sure. All right, so we mentioned this is going to be a supersized episode. So since it's Halloween and since we've kind of run out of ideas, we're gonna go up with our next favorite thing, which is eating. So I think we should go around and as an homage to the season, let's talk about our favorite Halloween candy before we head out of here. So let's kind of do the same rules once again. Maybe your favorite and an honorable mention. So Mosh Pit, head us off. Favorite Halloween candy?
Well, it's candy cigarettes. I can't believe you give them to us, and they're so good. They're actually not great, but I thought they were. And I found one at an old timey candy. They're pretty tasty. A little bit of wintergreen. Yeah. And it's the packaging. It's like your own thing. What I also honorable mention goes to candy corn. I'm a candy cigarettes and candy corn, but the candy corn with the pumpkins are the mix.
Harvest mix. Okay, yeah.
Harvest mix. Yeah. Okay. I like harvest mix.
Those are great. That's a great call. All right, Headbang, your turn.
Mine are the ones that could be poisoned the easiest.
Nice.
No, I thought about favorite candies, and like honorable mention goes to the Reese's peanut butter cups. The flat one.
Hall of Fame.
Those to me were like the most expensive, and like if I saw a guy giving them out, I would try to loop around and act like a new kid to get another Reese's. But other than money, Jolly Ranchers were my favorite.
Can't beat those either. Yeah,
hard candy. Like I would make because they were like a penny each back then.
Yeah.
I don't even know all the flavors back then. I was just like, I saw that hard candy and I just wanted to.
No, that's a great pick. All right. Remember the fire sticks, the long stick, the long cinnamon one? They're like 6 inches long. Those are great. All right, Mike, your turn. Your favorite candy, buddy.
Yeah, I'm really old, so I remember like going to Halloween and you wouldn't really get chocolate bars like they give out now.
Yeah.
You didn't have the bite size and fun size. Occasionally we'd have the one house to give out full size candy bars or like give you the honor system and leave them out in their front,
right?
Which was really stupid.
There's no honor on Halloween.
No, but we had a lot of the old candies, like the black and orange little pieces of crap, and the Mary Jane. Those are awful. BB Bats. Those are terrible. But the ones I liked were the Bullseyes. They were these little caramel. They were made by this company called Getz. And they were Those were delicious. Wacky wafers, especially the watermelon flavor. Oh,
Oh yeah. Now we're
my
talking.
favorite though was not the Pal bubble gum or the double bubble. Those were trash. But is when somebody would give you the Bazooka Joe gum, and it came
Yeah.
with a little comic.
Hardest
And
gum on the
Yeah.
planet.
yeah, hard as hell. But you would read the stupid joke in the comic, and you would collect points, and and eventually, if you got like 1 million of them, you get a hovercraft. But those were what I remember getting in the bottom of my bag. Love them, So
Those, yeah,
that's what stuck in my mind.
those are great.
Yeah.
Now we're hitting some nostalgia. Now we're getting somewhere. All right, so my favorite mosh pit kind of stole a little bit of my thunder, but I'm going to go with candy corn because me so corny. As Buddy Elf reminded us, it's one of the 4 food groups, right? So you got candy canes, candy corn, and syrup. So you got to go with one of those. But I love candy corn. It gets a lot of bad rap. People like to hate it just because they think it's cool. But candy corn's been around for like 100 years. For those we just missed, October 30th is Candy Corn Day, just in case anybody's curious.
Darn it.
Yeah, they're fat free. They're only 7 calories each, so they're almost good for you. You almost have to eat them. But people say they don't like it, but to the haters out there, 9 billion kernels are made a year of candy corn.
That would be my island getaway candy, I guess.
Yeah,
if I
exactly.
was on an island, I'd have to bring the candy corn.
And what, Justin? What order do you eat them in? Do you eat them white, yellow, then orange?
White,
or
yellow,
do you
orange.
do yellow, orange, white?
White, yellow, orange. And if you line up, they actually look like a cob of corn, which people forget. If you line them up, they actually take the shape of a corn cob. But 9 billion kernels a year. So if you were to stack those one on top of each other and climb that, you know what you get?
To the moon?
Diabetes. All right, there you go. My second honorable mention here would be wax lips. I've always been a big fan of wax lips and vampire teeth.
Awesome.
They're very seasonal. You don't get them a lot. They got that odd kind of vanilla wintergreen flavor to them. The flavor lasts for about 4 or 5 seconds. But just to break open the wax lips, there's nothing on the planet smells like that, and it's just one of those things that
I wish I would.
Yeah. Do y'all remember candy cigarettes that actually had smoke to them? Or is that my memory? Okay. Maybe those are real. I don't.
There's the lit side, but I don't remember the smoke.
Okay.
Maybe
mine weren't candy.
I remember melting them down with a spoon in a flame and injected them, but other than that. All right, so we got to stop talking at some point, guys. Here, it's almost Christmas, but we want to thank our special guests again, Mosh Pit and Headbang. Really appreciate you guys joining us. It was a hell of a lot of fun. Thank you for being so accommodating. Last time we were in NYC, we were heading that way again. We hope you will certainly take us in on our next trip. But you guys did a great job. I'm just thrilled to have you. So
yes, great to be here.
So great.
I think I took the first Polaroid picture of this team.
All right.
Caught us on video.
He's not joking, but he has like 3 Polaroids. I've seen. I can attest to that. All right, so if you enjoyed what you listened to, you can check out more about our show on our Instagram page at Grumpy Nostalgia. And if you feel compelled to send us an email outlining in great detail of how wrong we are in all our observations, you can do that too. You can reach out at nostalgiagrumps@gmail.com. If you liked what you heard again, please rate and review our show. We're on all podcasting platforms. If you could rate and review, that would be great. That really helps with the algorithm, especially on Apple. If you could do that, we'd appreciate it. But we want to take this opportunity to thank all of our guests that have joined us for this Halloween season. Aaron and Dr. K and Molly, of course, and our new friends, Headbang and Mosh Pit. You guys provide a lot of great content. It was a very special season. We really enjoyed doing it. And we might as well start looking at Christmas doing the same thing. So, again, we want to thank all of our special guests for this last month. It's been a lot of fun. The downloads have been great. People really love it. So this was a lot of fun, Mike. But I guess that's going to kind of wrap it up. So, Mike, anything else you want to say before we head out of here?
Wacky wafers.
Thousands of people die every year from sleeping in the bathtub. Did you know that, Mike?
I actually looked that up. I thought it was. I got 87.
Okay, it's somewhere in the middle. All right. So for Mosh Pit and Headbang and Mike James, this is Justin, and we'll see you again next time. Happy Halloween, everybody.